All right, so welcome in everyone. So I got a client, Drew, with me here, and we're just going to go over some of the results that I've gotten him and what it's been like working with me. So, Drew, tell me a little about who you are and what kind of work that you do.
Yeah, definitely. So, Drew, I run a sales consulting and training business. I've been doing it for about 2 years. So, one of the things that comes with that is obviously just the complexity of taxes. Married filing jointly. My wife is a W-2, regular W-2 job. So, I have, investments and business income and multiple LLCs and a fair bit of complexity in my business. So that's why I initially reached out to Kyle to really just put my mind at ease and make sure I wasn't missing anything in terms of year-end taxes and make sure I wasn't going wrong with the IRS, and also I wasn't overpaying in taxes to send the IRS more than they necessarily were due.
Yeah, we don't need to overpay them anything more than what we need to. But yeah, like especially as you start growing like the business, and this is for anyone else, as you grow, complexity grows. You start to need different entity units, different deductions, different investments start coming into play, and it gets all really dicey as you grow. So you need people in your corner who can understand that more. Nice. And then how did you hear about my services?
Yeah, so we're in obviously a group together, a marketing group, and I don't remember how we initially connected. I think you reached out, or you made an offer to take a look at anyone's taxes and see if you could help. And I was like, hey, you know what? Perfect. I'd already worked with and had been working with my current tax preparer for the year end and prepping for the next year, but I'm always someone who's going to say, hey, let me have a second opinion. Let me have someone else take a look at this and make sure that my current provider is not missing anything and there's not any other strategies I can't take advantage of as well. So it was kind of perfect timing, and I reached out and we got connected, and pretty quick and painless intake call, and just understanding my situation and ingesting all my documents and all my past returns, and got a result pretty quickly.
Definitely, yeah. And I think that's like a big misconception that I want anyone who's watching this to know is like, even if you're already working with a CPA or a tax pro, it's always good to have their work get double checked. People miss things. They might not be able to grow with you as you scale and they might not understand things. So getting it double checked definitely helps and seeing what could be out there and if it's time to move on to somebody better or somebody who understands where you're going.
Yeah, and I'll just tell a quick story on that maybe is illuminating
Yeah.
for people. Is I've been in a position, I've been on and off entrepreneur for years, and I was in a position not too long ago where I got one of those dreaded letters from the IRS that said, "Hey, you owe us, X amount of dollars, like a large amount of money." Um, and having, dutifully filed and paid taxes every single year without skipping with who I thought was a good CPA and tax preparer, that was definitely a shock to me. And so as soon as that happened, eventually we went back and figured it out and got everything sorted out. And it was through no fault of my previous CPA. But I'll tell you, you never want to be in a position as a business owner where you are questioning whether your CPA really is dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's. It's always good to have like a second set of eyes, double check everyone's work, and just make sure that, everyone's being as compliant as possible and there's just no surprises. It's just life is challenging enough, and business entrepreneurship is challenging enough without necessarily having to deal with surprise letters from the IRS.
No, yeah, those surprise letters are not good. And I feel like online there's a lot of misguided advice that you'll see across TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, where people will give their 2 cents on anything and everything, whether it's you can write off this investment's good, this structure's great, this timing strategy works, but it's a lot of BS and you have to weed through that. And it can be a little uncertain as you hear about it, and you're like, like, am I missing something? Am I not taking advantage of everything? So seeing what's real and what's not real is getting kind of challenging, honestly.
Yeah, there's a lot of misinformation out there, so it definitely helps to have someone good in your corner.
Definitely. And so like going back to like the services, like was there a specific like thing that you were struggling with or a certain like inflection point? I know I had sent out like a post in the group with an offer, but was there like one particular thing that you were like, this is something that I would really like to have looked at?
It was really just, it was both to double check the work of, all the tax strategy and prep I was already doing and make sure I wasn't missing anything. But it was also because I was kind of looking at a couple different strategies um, and tax advantages. And I really wanted another expert to look and say, well, hey, let me give you some guidance. This one's maybe not as good for you. Maybe this one's better. And I was going back and forth between a couple of different investment types. Like, oh, is it better to invest in real estate this year? Or is that something I should put off till next year? Based on my unique situation. So I was really just looking not only for like brain checking, but guidance for my specific situation and guidance for my specific tax situation. Again, married filing jointly and with a business. So, Kyle, you just provided that at a really, really high level and really were able to put my mind at ease. Um, with investments, with the implications of investments and capital gains, and really the strategies that I should be using, and even planning for the future. What are the strategies I should think about next year, not just this year, to put myself in the best possible position. So I think that strategic level thinking and trying to position yourself ahead of the game for the next couple of years in your business is really invaluable.
Yeah, I agree, especially like the timing piece. There's times to do certain things, like more advanced strategies may come in a few more years, but also like foundational things that people might miss out on. Simple stuff that once you implement it, you can still see tens of thousands in savings. You're like, wow, I didn't realize I could do that. I was too busy looking at like this other thing that I could do. I'm glad we started with this. And now
Yeah,
we can slowly build ourselves up so that we're taking advantage of things when we're meant to take advantage of things, which is a good thing.
100%.
Cool. And then working with me, what kind of results did you get?
Yeah, so that was the best part. I think you identified a few things that I wasn't thinking about, and it went from a pretty significant tax liability to a pretty non-trivial five-figure savings, just from pulling a couple little levers. So I was really happy with that result. It really put me and my wife's minds at ease of knowing that, hey, like, we've done everything we can, we've done everything right, and we actually were able to shrink our tax liability pretty substantially. We had some pretty good strategies in place, but I think this really just took it to the next level, put the cherry on top, and made a very significant difference. And then also just knowing kind of we're future proofing and we're setting things up for next year and for the future, I think that's also brings a lot of peace of mind.
Yeah, and I'm really happy that we were able to get a result. You save some money and staying compliant because like we all want to legally minimize our taxes as best as possible, but we don't want to put like our families in jeopardy, our business in jeopardy. It's got to be legal, but not overpaying. So like, yeah, understanding that balance, there's there's a time and place for it, and you just got to understand that. But very happy that we were able to get results for you.
Yeah, yeah, it was great. Definitely would recommend to anyone. Work with Kyle. He's the real deal. He knows what he's doing. He's got the experience to back it up and to help. Even if you think your tax situation is messy or complicated, I'm quite sure he can take care of you and kind of get you a great outcome.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate that. And one last question that I have is what's one piece of advice for other clients if they're thinking about working with me to get the most out of these services?
I think apart from all the basic stuff like document everything, like be really on top of your documentation. I would say just realize that like I've never regretted investing in tax services or CPA services in my business career or my life. It's always money that brings a huge ROI, and it's a relationship worth cultivating. It's worth getting someone that you trust, and it's worth partnering with that person and just continuing to build for the long term. Because anything I've ever put into any investments I've ever made into tax prep, into tax strategy, tax planning, it's always paid multiple, many-fold back. So it's kind of a no-brainer. Like at a certain point in business, if you're not doing this, you're not really in business, right? You're kind of you're playing with a hobby as opposed to building a real business with real enterprise value.
I agree. Yeah. And I think it's just being financially irresponsible at a certain point where you
Totally.
get so high, you get to a certain revenue range, certain employee count, and you're just leaving hundreds of thousands potentially on the table that should be going back to you, should be going back to your team, should be going back to your family instead. Instead, it's going to the government who may not use the money as well as you probably could.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for the time, Drew. And for anybody else who's watching, if you are interested in getting services like this and you want to mitigate your tax burden and save on taxes, my offer to you is that I'll audit your entire tax situation and find at least 5 figures in savings within 14 days, or I will refund you in full. If that interests you, you can click the link below and get started.
Awesome. Thank you, Kyle.